Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. With psychedelics exploding in popularity and having a resurgence of interest in the modern day, it is more important than ever to ensure we are each well-informed on these topics, how to discern if they are right for us in our lives, and aware of the tools that can assist us in these experiences. Amongst the many tools available to us within this space, none are more available and easier to tap into than our breath. Our breath is one of the universal principles between each of us, as without it, we would cease to exist, and therefore, we each have an opportunity to not only explore the various techniques available to us today, but to also make them our own by experiencing and building upon what we learn within this vast realm we call breathwork. Today's guest in the show is a world-class breathwork instructor who works primarily in the realm of transformational breathwork, which focuses upon a direct application of conscious, connected breathing to bring forth the notion of letting go and surrendering and allow us to more easily apply these concepts to our lives as a whole. In addition, he is also a very experienced psychedelic educator and speaks to his own experiences, shares his insights into this world at events such as Detroit Psychedelic Conference, and is passionate about de-stigmatizing these medicines and providing resources as to how to connect with them consciously and responsibly. In today's episode, we will be diving into how he was introduced to this world, the impact these medicines have had on him, what they have done to help him express more of his authentic self, and much, much more. So please, help me in welcoming my man Ankhara Akeru to the show. Ankhara, my man. Dude, so good to have you here with me, brother.
I appreciate it. Send you some gratitude right now for, having me on your show and introducing me to your followers. It's a great honor to be here, and I'm really excited. It's been real good to build a rapport with you and get to know you over, the last year or so. And I'm really excited about what we have to talk about today. And, just much gratitude going out to you and this podcast that you're hosting here.
Hell
today,
yeah.
man.
Thank you, man. And for the listeners, Ankhara and I recorded an absolutely fire episode. I think it was back in July, and the internet gods shut it down because it was so fire. So we've been planning out this redo for a while, and it came at the perfect time. And I also want to say that although I tried to fit everything into your intro, you're a man of many talents, man. We didn't even get into the incredible work you do, making your own crystal ankhs and all the things that I'm sure I'll ask you about in a little while. But where I like to start with these is really figuring out, how did you first get interested in the topic of psychedelics, right? Because we grew up in the age of just saying no, a lot of propaganda. How did you go from just saying no to saying yes? Tell me about that.
Great question, Ryan. Well, a lot of times this stuff comes down through the DNA strands, the lineages. And I happen to have a mother, and a father that grew up in the era of the, late 60s, early 70s. And so my parents were experienced, if you will. And so I think, an aspect of that came through just being inside of a family that was open to experimenting and connecting with these type of things. And I think that also came through a lot of the life experience and influence through specifically the music. The music that my parents listened to had a really big impact on how I connected with my first psychedelic experience. And I would say that my stepfather handed down this crate of albums that was full of Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, Janis Joplin, and all these psychedelic rock artists, So that was kind of my initiation into the psychedelic realms. And then it just brought me in, with a curiosity about what this word psychedelic meant. I remember specifically hearing this word, and I was so intrigued because I never, had an experience, but I heard this word psychedelic, and I'm like, what does that mean? And, as a young person, 16 years old, just having a lot of curiosity and wanting to explore. I went on my first LSD journey in high school, literally in school. My first experience. And then, I grew up in Florida, and this region is just, it was in the southern tropic regions where, psilocybin particularly grows plentifully in the cow pastures and things around here during the spring and summertime. And so I had opportunities to go out and actually, before the days of growing in your closet and things like that, we would go out and actually pick them. And so, from some of my first psychedelic experiences came from going out and exploring in the cow pastures and taking the risk of, the old farmer catching you and different things like that. But we would actually go and attain our own mushrooms from the wild. And that's was my introduction to psychedelia.
Wow. That's so amazing, man. And it's so funny. I'm just realizing now, we were talking before about how you grew up in Florida. I had a buddy that I met. This is actually a really funny story. And I don't think I've ever told it on a podcast yet, but my cousin Jackie, right? He's got long red dreadlocks. Like, back in the day before cannabis was legal, like obviously he looked the part, right? Let's just put it that way. So this guy, Sam, moves up from Orlando. He grew up in Orlando. And he meets my cousin Jackie because he gets on the T-bus, right? Like the public transportation and whatever. I don't know if they call it the T everywhere, but basically he sees my cousin, red dreadlocks, beard, and a Gumby, like a little Gumby figure sticking out of his backpack. So Sam walks over to him and goes, "Hey, dude, you know where you can get it? You know where I can get any weed?" And Jackie goes, "Why did you ask me?" And he goes, "Dude, look at you," right? And so through getting to know Sam, he told me all these wild stories about exactly what you just said, like going to pick his own mushrooms, getting shot at and stuff on farmers' farms and stuff. And so it's funny you bring that up, man. But, I'm curious for you, as a father yourself, what do you think the impact is of being able to at least open up this idea of the psychedelic nature of reality and what psychedelics are and educating our children on these things? Because I think that this has been something that in previous generations, maybe not with your parents, not with mine as well, but that parents were vehemently against, right? And in doing so, they made their kids want it way more, right? And they made them be more irresponsible because they didn't know how often they were going to get to do it. So let's just take as much as possible while we have a free day, right? So as a father yourself, I'm curious, what is your viewpoint on educating our children, maybe not children, but as our kids become teenagers and things like that, around the topic of psychedelics and more so the psychedelic nature of reality as a whole? Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that's super important. As a psychedelic community, we really need to be mindful of our future, and that is the younger generations and the children and things. And so what we have today is definitely an opportunity for that educational piece, and not something that's available to the previous generations, at least on the level that we have of understanding and science and research and, ancient cultural models and things like that. We have a really great understanding, if you will, of psychedelics now. And so, what my parents experienced and went through, they didn't have anyone before them to sort of like hand them any type of, cultural teachings or any type of deeper awareness or ancient understandings of this. They had to go and get that for themselves, and now from that time, sort of like the reintroduction of psychedelics into our culture in the 60s here in America, we experienced that shift and that wave. And from that time till now, we've had a lot of time to educate ourselves. We went through the war on drugs, and then like even my parents were against utilizing these things in their lives, and there was a big shift. And now the tide is changing again, and we have a lot more research now. We have a lot more ways to educate, and it's not so scary and taboo, right? So for me, the education and awareness comes through experiential levels with my child, bringing them to like a sweat lodge. You know what I mean? I go and occasionally connect and do, traditional Native American sweat lodges, and I've brought my daughter to those, so she gets to experience that part of, culture and something that's a little different. And she gets to ask questions and explore a different type of culture and things like that. So giving the children not just like textbook education, but hands-on awareness and knowledge, like taking them out to different places and events where they can connect with people their age. And definitely like right now there's a huge interest and I'd say the college age level of kids that really want to educate themselves and be more aware of things that are happening now in this field. So a huge part of it is that experiential hands-on knowledge, not necessarily like that they need to go there and take something, but they get to experience like the cultural awareness and some of the things that come with the psychedelic experience, so that it's not so scary and taboo for them.
Yeah, I love that, man. That was a beautiful answer, because I love what you said about not just handing them textbooks, but giving them experiences, right? And we all know from breathwork, sweat lodges, things like that, you don't need to take a psychedelic substance to have a psychedelic experience, right? And I think that ultimately what's going to help someone in a psychedelic experience, should they ever want to actually have an experience with the medicine, is being able to be resilient, being able to find things like their breath, being able to understand that this too shall pass, right? And things like sweat lodges, even exercise, things like that can help set them up for success should they ever want to go experience that, right? But I think just like you said, the most important thing I've found is that, Paul Chek often says that what does PhD stand for? Piled higher and deeper, right? So textbooks are fantastic, right? Knowledge is fantastic. Intellect is fantastic. But to me, I've always seen it as the secondary, and the thing that can help you contextualize and articulate what your experiences have been and what's behind those experiences. So, for instance, I wouldn't know about, like shadow work and all of these things if I hadn't first learned about them, but I hadn't had the experience of what that's like. Now, if someone's explaining something to me, I can go, oh, you're doing shadow work, right? But if I just spent years of my life studying what shadow work was from a book and never having experienced it, how well would I really know the concept, right? Like I always give this example. We can read about what an apple tastes like. We can read what shape it is. We can look at pictures of it. We can have someone describe what it's like to eat it. But if we really want to know what an apple is, eventually we're going to have to just go try an apple ourselves, right? And so like, I think this whole idea of experiential, knowledge is really getting put back into the mainstream in a way that's really, it to me really is something positive, because when we look at, college and all of these kind of things, I think a lot of what that's been, especially in my experience, is just piling people higher and deeper with other people's perspectives on life. And I think that if you don't teach kids to have their own experiences, like, hey, you can learn this stuff, right? But go experience it yourself and see what you think about it, right? Or at least be able to discern for yourself what you feel about it, right? So if someone describes psychedelics and someone goes, I don't know about that, well, actually think about it, right? Like, do I really just not like it? Is there something here that maybe I do want to try it, whatever, but whatever answer they come to is the right one. And speaking of education, I know one of your big things that you love doing is educating people, right? And I'd love to hear how that got started, with one of your mentors, Kalindi, and, just like explain kind of how you met him, what the influence of him and his whole movement has done for you, and really what you're most excited about in your ability to, speak so articulately about psychedelic medicine and how to educate people on that.
I appreciate the question, Ryan, in regards to how I came into becoming an educator, because the story of how that happened has everything to do with my own experiential knowledge, but also the influence of different teachers and mentors in my life. And I think that that's a really important part of our experience and our growth, is to work with the ones who came before us, who really have gone through these experiences and can offer some teachings, insights, and shortcuts to navigate through the life experience, right? And so around 2017 I started getting the call. I had been working with mushrooms for a good part of my adult life, but at that time kind of understood and got this calling that I needed to start, bringing my story into the public and sharing it, And so I started looking for ways to do that. And I started basically watching podcasts on YouTube, just from other speakers and other people who were educators, to just kind of like get a feel and a grounds for where I was and what I wanted to really offer. I came across a podcast from James W. Gesso, I think Adventures Through the Mind podcast. Shout out to James Gesso. But he was actually one of the first people that I saw interviewing Kalindi E on a podcast. And, the moment that I started hearing him speak and educate, I knew that there was something different about him, and he had a very unique and special message for the world. His voice and his words just immediately grabbed me, and I was fascinated. I started watching many different videos and interviews that he'd done on YouTube, and just found as much as I could. How when you discover something or find someone, you're like, oh my gosh. It's like quite a bit of time watching his lectures, and he's traveled all throughout the world to different psychedelic conferences, Breaking Convention, and all throughout Europe. And he's created and founded the Detroit Psychedelic Conference. And so I actually reached out to him in 2018. I was ready to start speaking and coming out, and I was looking at different conferences and things that I could present at. I saw what was happening in Detroit with the conference there, and it just has a very different feel to it. It's very grassroots. It's it's not on a college campus. It's just like, it's not all these huge mainstream psychedelic speakers that you've heard of. It's just like very, very grassroots, community oriented. It was something that I really wanted to be a part of and experience. So reached out to Kalindi and expressed my interest in speaking on the stage there in Detroit. And he, without any question, just said yes and invited me forward to come and present my work, So it was a massive honor for me to be, recognized and invited out to the Detroit Psychedelic Conference. And that was really the first stage and public platform that I had to start sharing my story about psychedelics. So since that time, of course, Baba Kalindi has transitioned and he's an elder now, Just wanted to say, big gratitude to Baba Kalindi, for all the amazing energy, all the wisdom, all of the connection that you brought into the community. I wanted to just say thank you so much, Kalindi, for being a big influence in my life and inviting me out to the Detroit Psychedelic Conference. So had an opportunity, to speak on that stage in 2020. I got the call to really do the work. That was when Kalindi left his message, is now is the time we have to go out and do the work, speaking to us individually to go out and begin to, wherever we're feeling inspired or motivated to do this specific work in whatever niche or whatever form, but to actually go out and take action and do the work. So since then, I've had opportunities to speak on different public forums and podcasts, and I've also created a psychedelic facilitator mentorship that I offer online, and I've been really stepping into that role as a leader and educator in the field. So it's a really big opportunity to connect with our community.
Wow, man. It's so beautiful to hear that. And, I just had a moment where I realized that Kyle Kingsbury actually, I believe, talked about the same individual on the podcast we did together. I remember him saying Kalindi, and he was talking about how, if I remember correctly, what he would do is eat 30 grams of mushrooms. Am I thinking about the same guy? Yeah.
Well,
I
he was
so.
known for, first and foremost, he's a martial arts master, expert. That's his first thing. And he's, a grassroots organizer. So he's always been involved in the community in Detroit and bringing, not only just martial arts, but education, educational and community connection forum. And so that was his first and primary work in the community, but he's also known as a mycologist and ultra high doser. So, but now, of course, he's very well known for that specific, intent and purpose. And so, he would go on really, really high doses. And his thing was moving beyond just the healing and medicinal aspects of the, the psychedelic culture, which is, an important aspect. And he never knocked that, but he did talk about, once, we've got the work done and we've healed in a certain regard, but to begin to utilize, this as a tool to explore the multiverse, to explore inner self. And to get those gems, just like in the Lord of the Rings, you got to defeat the dragon, So it's about facing your fears, facing your shadow, and coming to terms with that and defeating that. And then, the treasure lies within the cave. So, that's a lot of his focus and his teachings were around going in at ultra high doses. Another great example is we can look at these Kemetic scrolls and hieroglyphs, right? And he talked about going inside the hieroglyphic reality and partaking in that, multiverse reality, and really how this experience was about recreating here on Earth what we saw in the multiverse. These pyramids and all this were these are holographic images of what we see in the transdimensional realms, and we came to recreate them here on Earth.
Dude, I mean, that's so rad. And it honestly makes so much sense because, right, if we understand, I do a lot of work with Kabbalah, right? And so if we understand the 10 sephiroths, the 10 spheres in the tree all relate to a different level of consciousness, and there's different beings, right? Gods, aka Elohim, that command those certain levels of consciousness. Well, at the end of the day, they're not just there to heal you, right? Like that's amazing. But also it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like once you have your basic needs met, you're now able to have wants, right? You're able to have desires and things like that because you're able to have enough food, shelter, water, etc., right? So at the end of the day, I think this is really important to talk about because I think for a lot of people, especially today, what I see a lot of is people like getting so stuck into the healing, right? So they're like, oh, I need to heal. And they're constantly looking for that. And where you put attention, energy is going to flow, right? And so if you're constantly stuck into just healing, you can never really do anything but survive, And so I think it's important that, yes, while healing is fantastic, also ask yourself, like, what else is possible within this space? Because I know for me, yes, I've had incredibly profound experiences with regards to healing. But at the same time, I've also had equally, if not more profound experiences just getting to speak to these entities, right? To these like supreme beings, these ascended masters, and being able to joke with them and have them show me like things that I don't even know how to say in words because they're so beyond words, right? Like the mechanisms of the universe and the different, ways in which people build solar systems and all of these kind of things. It's unbelievable. And it's so cool that he was big on that, and it makes perfect sense that he was a martial arts master because I think there's a lot that is same, definitely different, but same about the martial arts realm and the psychedelic realm. Like my business partner is a black belt in jiu-jitsu and does a whole lot of stuff, kung fu, and been doing it since he was like 6 years old. And, it's helped him a lot when he's been in the shit because, again, before breathwork became big, where was one of the only places that people were learning about controlling their breath? Martial arts, So it's very interesting.
Yeah, Kalindi talks specifically about how psychedelics actually influence martial arts, and that all ancient knowledge of martial arts had a direct pairing with psychedelics and entheogenics. And when you go to Africa and see a lot of the traditional tribes there that still participate in martial arts, they work with all different types of brews and teas and entheogenic concoctions. And we have no clue because these are like secret societies. So they're not just like giving away their ingredients and what they're doing, You would have to go and live there and be a part of the tribe for, 20 or 30 years to even have access to that. So, there was always an influence from the psychedelic realms into martial arts, because when you tapped into that psychedelic space, you feel that flow, right? You even can embody that and begin to move your body with that flow. I'm sure many of us have experienced that, when you're just in that zone, you start like flowing and moving your body, right? That's qigong. That's the beginning and the basics of martial arts is the dance. Even dancing is a huge part of martial arts. So martial arts had influences from other areas in microcosms, but specifically the psychedelics. Like when you would see in the kung fu movies, the master like jumps up on the blade of grass on one foot or whatever, or they fly through the air, flying V-kick, whatever it is. But they were actually doing that from tapping into the entheogenic realms while practicing their martial arts. They're definitely directly correlated and have a big each other.
That's so amazing, dude. And yeah, it makes so much sense. Like, again, like I'm a firm believer that psychedelics are here in a big way to remind us of what is possible beyond our current limitations, our limiting stories, etc. Right? Like, and I tell everyone, like, not like you're going to be able to like just see everything start melting around you like you took 5 hits of acid in your normal state of reality. Maybe so, right? But like the thing that really, synonymizes this for me, or like really like allows me to experience this the most, is meditation. There are certain times of meditation where, because I've had so many psychedelic experiences, I know where I could go. And so like literally just yesterday I was meditating. I was a little tired in the morning too, because I just got back from traveling. And so I go into a meditation, some transcendental meditation, and I'm sitting there and I'm about, I don't know, probably 10 minutes into a 20-minute meditation. And all of a sudden I just have this very interesting feeling that happens to me pretty often, but this was one of the strongest times it's happened to me, where all of a sudden it goes from like, okay, I'm focusing on the mantra. Okay, I'm focusing on the mantra, to all of a sudden I am everywhere but inside of my own self, right? Like I've all of a sudden become the room. I've become the world. I've become the birds. I've become everything. And it's like a split second where all of a sudden I go, whoa. And when I say whoa or like anything like that, I realize it's not coming from here. It's coming from everything else. And then all of a sudden, the second that happens, I'm back in my body. I'm like, whoa, what was that? Right. So that is a psychedelic experience in a completely sober state of reality. And so I think it's important because I'm sure you've seen some of this too. Like, I think a lot of people in the modern day world, because psychedelics were so demonized and now so popularized, believe, because most of our systems are based on more equals better, that the same thing must be the same with psychedelics, right? And so a lot of people end up going from ceremony to ceremony to ceremony, and no judgment, right? But they're missing out on the opportunity to integrate and really have their whole life become a psychedelic experience. Have you seen that going on? And if so, like, what is maybe some wisdom you would offer someone who maybe right now is in that cycle of like thinking more is better with psychedelics? Like, how, if someone asked you that, what would you say back to them?
It's definitely, I've seen people in that cycle, and I've even seen in my own personal life and experience utilized, them as a form of escapism. I'm no better or higher than anyone else in this awareness. But particularly, I think it's definitely important to tap into that integration piece that you mentioned, and really taking time and space between your journeys. And there's no necessary routine to this, as like how much time you need or whatever. But, if you're going from week to week to week, ceremony to ceremony to ceremony, or journey to journey, or just, festival to festival, whatever it is, you're not having those breakthrough experiences, and you feel like you still need more, it may be time to like step back from that a little bit and tap more into the awareness of embodying those experiences. And, as you mentioned, the breath work is such a crucial aspect of that embodiment. And you can fully have non-ordinary states of experience with breath work. 30-gram journey, but it's going to be an aware of a bigger sense of the big I like to call it. We have this little I that is us in the physical 5 sense reality, and then we have this big I of who we are as our God self, right? Who we are, right?
Yes.
So taking some time to really feel into that, through the breath. I find that the breath, what it does is it brings you into yourself. We have, because of the world we live in and everything going on at such a fast pace, we live outside of ourselves. Like our mentality and our awareness is continually streaming outwards. That's why things like flotation tanks, huge integration piece for me. Going and sitting in a meditation state in a flotation tank for an hour equals months of healing and regeneration for me. So I've gone into deep, non-ordinary states in a flotation tank in 5 minutes, just with breath and floating on nothing. It's literally, you're in dark nothingness floating. And believe it or not, that can be a psychedelic state for you. So going into those experiences where you don't have to feel like you need to take the medicine every week or every month, but really like integrate that with journaling, integrate that with the breath work, integrate that with flotation tanks. There's so many different tools that we have at our disposal. And so that's why I really encourage, and I teach people through my courses about how to utilize these other states, these other tools, these other activations that get us into that frame without having to consume psychedelics every time.
That makes perfect sense, man. And, I also want to add in that the reason I asked this, because like you, like I've been there too, right? So for anyone listening, please don't think that Ankhara or I are talking from not having experienced the feeling of going from ceremony to ceremony, and I don't regret that by any means. Like, I think it was an absolutely essential part of my evolution, and being able to now speak from experience once again, rather than just from a textbook about like, hey, I did it. It wasn't that it was bad, but I've just realized that like I want to be high all the time, right? But that's not sustainable if I'm just connecting with external substances. But it is if I start learning from them of like, hey, can you tell me why I can't feel like this all the time? Cool. All right, now let me integrate that. Okay, I've got that under control. Now let me go back in. Okay, I got that lesson. Because it's kind of like a skyscraper, right? Like if you don't build the foundation, you can't stack anything on top of it, right? So if you have a foundational layer of just going from ceremony to ceremony, well, then your foundation isn't too strong because you haven't been able to actually have time to build it. But once that foundation is strong, then you can be like, okay, next lesson. Okay, next lesson. Okay, next lesson. And eventually you have an amazing skyscraper, And one of the things I'm curious on for you is, with all of the incredible creations you make, right? The crystal ankhs, all of these, the copper pyramids, things like that. For a lot of people, they're probably seeing things like this, like the copper pyramid, they've probably seen before. I don't think I've seen anyone that does the ankhs like you do. They're unbelievable. But these kind of tools, like, first of all, how did you get into making them? Because they're extremely psychedelic in nature in and of themselves. And what I'm really curious on is, have you found them to be supportive in psychedelic experiences? Because I imagine some people listening are like me, always looking for new things, biogeometry, things like this to harmonize our energetic space, to protect us when we're traveling. Tell us a little bit about how you got into that and what you found their utility to be within the psychedelic space and really anywhere and beyond.
So my initial interest in the crystal kingdom came around the same time frame when I first started experiencing psychedelics and cannabis. And so there was just a natural attraction, and it was more based on like a physical and visual interest and curiosity about crystals, the inner worlds and the facets and all these colors, they really were very inviting to me. So I started, in the beginning with just wrapping little crystals for a pendant that I could wear because I wanted to have the crystals on me, and then I started just learning more and actually working with crystals and sitting with them and connecting with them. What I found is that these are actually sentient beings, just like when we work with the plant teachers, these things have sentient beings that come with them, like grandmother ayahuasca. Each one of these plant medicines has a different frequency and a different being or energy connected to it. So in that same way, crystals have these different energetic signatures. And so when I started to connect and understand with, what that I was dealing with, just really dove into exploring, working with them and making tools. Or it first started as like jewelry and pendants and things. And then I met one of my early teachers and mentors, Ras Naeem. And he was a big influence on my artistic style and my gravitation towards the symbol of the ankh. When I met him in my early 20s, he had this very deep influence on my interest in working with crystals on a different level, creating devices for them, right? Or tools, if you will. And these tools can be utilized in many different ways. So they're not just like a pendant that you wear on your neck that looks pretty. These are like altar pieces. These are master keys. These are dream keepers. These are martial arts, multi-faceted weaponry, So they function and work on many different levels for the different ones who utilize them, right? So what I found is that I have my own particular utilization and connection with them. But what I found is that different people are attracted to them and want to work with them as tools in their specific area of vocation for different reasons. But, because on a basic foundational level, the Ankh technology has everything to do with life, eternal life. And so I found that a primary level, a primary tool, it's utilized to conceive and birth life. That's the first primary, aspect of working with this tool. So I've worked with many doulas and midwives. I've worked with many mothers are either expecting or are wanting to become pregnant. And then, on another level, like there's other people who are martial artists that utilize them when they go into transdimensional realms as a form of weaponry, or as a form of protection.
Mm.
In this realm, they also are timekeepers, because we know that quartz watches or quartz technology, quartz chips, they all keep time and hold memory and keep information. So when you're utilizing a crystal technology, in particular combined with copper, what you have a ancient future timekeeper, if you will. This is holding the memory of your journey. So you can take this with you, and then when you come back, you have now like a record keeper in your hand that's going to allow you access and memory to memory points or timelines on that journey, right? So they're ancient timekeepers and really amazing for holding that memory of your journeys.
Mm.
And this is something that you can access again at other points where you're not on, you're not on the technology. Again, this is the integration point, because it allows you that access and connection without having to consume anything.
Mm.
They also, I've seen many different people utilize them for manifestation. So with manifestation, we utilize magnetic energy, and I put high-powered magnets inside of this technology as well. And what that does is it not only attracts, but it repels. So this form of technology, because if you look at magnetite, for example, it's a stone from the earth that's magnetic. We know that our bodies display electromagnetic frequency. The earth, and this is a principle inside the earth. So if we can increase our magnetic influence, working with stones that have magnetic properties or high-powered neodymium magnets, we can increase our magnetic attraction and repulsion systems.
Mm.
So now we can, this auric field, what we talk about as the auric field, is also the electromagnetic field. And when you work with crystals and magnets, you increase and boost your auric field. So that's keeping stuff out. That's repelling what you don't want to invite into your world, right? So when we're working with manifestation and magnets, we have to know what we want to attract and call in, but we also get to know what we're keeping out and we don't want to call into our lives. So there's these different elemental components of the crystal synergy ankhs that equate to an actual access point. The energetics and the frequency of this is synergized because we're combining not just the energy of crystals and of magnets and of copper. We're synergizing that so each one has its own energetic component, but when they're combined, in particular in an ancient symbol of eternal life, the quantum field is exponential from what you would get from just one of those individual technologies. So this is why the synergy component is important, because it's an amplification point. It's a tool of amplification. Whatever's already inside of you, your innate qualities, right? So Ryan, when you're speaking on the stage, right? Let me ask you a question. If you're speaking in front of a small crowd, you wouldn't need like any type of speaker system or a microphone or anything, right? You got 10 people in the crowd. But what about if you're speaking to a large auditorium with 10,000 people?
Yeah, you're going to need some.
You're going to need a technology that amplifies what you already have, your voice or your song, your story. It's already inherent and innate within you. But you need a technology that amplifies that so a larger sphere can be influenced, right? So this is important because you and I, as influencers and educators, we want to reach a crowd. We want to reach the people, and we want to amplify our voices. So this is a form of ancient future technology that takes your intentions, takes your prayers, takes your connection to your ancestors, and amplifies it into the quantum field. You know what I'm saying? That's what this technology is really about, bro.
Yeah, dude, that is amazing. I mean, it's so cool because it makes so much sense. I know from working with Kabbalah and different sacred geometry that wearing, certain shapes can do a very similar thing, right? Biogeometry is very similar, working with the energies of God and also the 12 bands of energy external to the centering, harmonizing energy called BG3. What I found is that both in growing my own cannabis with biogeometry and sacred geometry and these kind of things, and I know we've talked about copper pyramids and there are things like that the overall experience just feels less staticky and more clear overall. Have you noticed that when, like, say you're in a psychedelic experience or otherwise an altered state of being and you're utilizing these kind of tools? And if so, like, how would someone be able to, like, say if I was like, hey, Ankhara, I want you to make me an Ankh and I want to utilize it during a psychedelic experience. What would your advice be in terms of, like, do they hold it? Like, is there certain things they could do? I imagine this is very multifaceted, but what would, like, your first answer be to that? I'm curious.
Well, when I'm working with my community, the first thing I do is I ask them questions and I ask where they're at. Each one of these tools is basically is crafted and designed for the individual. So what I'm doing is I'm combining different sets of stones, design components that will basically amplify and magnetize the specific person's signature frequency. So let's say that they want to amplify their voice and they're starting a new podcast, or they're going to be speaking on a stage really soon. They want something to bring that vocal throat chakra clarity. We drop turquoise in there, or we drop, any other blue stone. We drop lapis in there, and there's specific stones that vibrate to these specific chakras and these specific frequencies. So that's why each individual crystal synergy ankh that you see, there's no two the same. They're designed with a signature frequency embedded in them that helps the individual amplify where they're at on their journey. So they may be working on sexual trauma healing. They may be working on the dream world and opening up their third eye. There's all different places. They may be heartbroken and they can't love again. So we put stones that open up the heart chakra in there. So the design and the components are always magnetized and specified to a signature frequency. And that's what sets the work aside. That's what sets us apart. It's not just something that we slap together or, have no forethought in. We really do. We look at your vibratory frequency and we do a vibratory analysis before we even touch the stones and choose what's going in them. So, that's an important part of it, is that these pieces are for specific intentions. Even when I'm creating the piece, I'm asking, what's your intention to utilize this piece? Oh, you're a doula and you want to utilize it in your birthing work, That gives me different downloads, intuitive hits to put certain stones in there. So that's kind of how it works on the level of how it translates into the stones that are in it, and then how they are combined and utilized in the work.
Dude, I love that, man. It was so funny because when I first went to go look at your work, when we first met, I was like, sick, let me go see what I can buy. And it was like, no, everything's custom. And I was like, that makes so much sense, because how could one thing be right for another person? And it's actually funny because in the mystery school, when I did Healers Academy, I got given a wand, right? And they talk about the same thing, like, no, these are all built specifically for the soul that's inhabiting this thing. And so I actually have my wand over there. Yours look much more in depth and beautiful. But at the same time, I still love my wand, but it's so fascinating what these do, because with the life activation wand, you're actually going to be opening up the codons in the back of the neck and activating someone, really turning on their spiritual blueprint. And it's really incredible stuff to be able to work with these beings, these sentient beings and these crystals and different metals and things like that. And it's just fascinating. I think that's one of the best things that psychedelics have ever given me, is the experience of these things being alive. Because now if someone tries to tell me they're not alive, I'm like, cool, read more from your textbook. I've actually had real world experience. And at the end of the day, everything is subjective. There's nothing objective in nature. So do I care about proving objectively that any of this stuff is real? No, because I know what's real for me, and that's all that matters. And so, man, this has been an amazing deep dive. I can't wait to have you back on. Make sure you tell the people where they can find you, where they can find your incredible work, where they can find out more about your courses and everything you offer, man. Where can people go to find you? And I'll link it all in the show notes too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first and foremost, I just want to say thanks again, Ryan, for hosting me. It's been a great show. I want to have you out on the Cosmic Keymaker podcast very soon.
Yeah, let's go.
You're invited cordially.
Hell yeah, dude. Let's go.
Yeah, we got to do it, man. But people can actually find more information about the Psychedelic Facilitator Mentorship course. It's called the Cosmic Keymakers Mentorship course. That's at thecosmickeymakers.com. And so you can find me over there in regards to courses and, online events and live events that we're hosting, live retreats and things like that. And then, as far as in regards to the Ankhs and how you can get one of those, you can reach out to me on Instagram at the Cosmic Keymaker. That's I think just Cosmic Keymaker, actually, COSMIC_key_maker, Cosmic Keymaker.
Beautiful.
And I do have a website for the Crystal Synergy Ankhs. That's Cosmic Roots Creations. It's all cosmic, but
oh, yeah.
but that one's Cosmic Roots Creations, and that's where a lot of the Crystal Synergy Ankhs and things live as well. So yeah,
beautiful, man. And my last question for Ankhara is this, right? So let's say someone listens to this conversation and they're really excited to explore the idea of psychedelic medicines in their own life. What is the one piece of advice that you would suggest to them to allow them to use the proper discernment in choosing whether or not these medicines are right for them at this moment in time?
I would say get involved in community, and connect with others who have been down this rabbit hole and who have prior experience and knowledge, because I think that having that support and having other people who can relate and can, help educate you is really important part. And that's why for me, I've started all these different community-based forums, like the Cypher Sessions on Clubhouse, and really creating a space for a community conversation and a community awareness around this. So before anything, having that, not just the education, but the connection, connecting with other people that can help guide you, that can support what you're wanting to do, and that can answer questions for you. You know what I mean? That's really a crucial part. And for me, has always been the foundation of the work that I'm doing in psychedelic space is creating community. So, find your local community. A lot of times there's organization called Decrim Nature that does a lot of work around, education and the laws around psilocybin and other psychedelics. So you can get involved in the Decrim Nature communities around the country. Or you can start your own community or your own online forum or a Signal chat or whatever and invite people in. Hey, you want to learn more? We got a whole crew over here that's like, we're all psychonauts. And every Saturday we get together and have an integration, session. So things like that, just being proactive. And if there's not already a community that is in or around your space, creating that community for others to come into. And that's, for me, again, that's always been part of my mission and what I do. So I don't sit around and wait for it to come to me. Like I go out and create the spaces and, pave the platforms in the way so that people have that safe space that they can come into and be like, yo, I gotta ask this real question, and I don't have anybody in my family or anybody at work that I can talk to. Like, I need someone who knows. So, that would be the number one suggestion that I have for your listening audience is to just, reach out, create community, connect with community, and continue to educate yourself through experience and through all the research and amazing educators who are out here in the space.
Dude, I love that, man. It's very sound advice, and I 100% agree with that. And guys, when I first chatted with Ankhara and had the opportunity to dive into his world, I was blown away at not only his amount of passion for breathwork, psychedelics, and art, but also to his ability to so seamlessly integrate these aspects of his life into one cohesive unit. Ankhara is a living example of what can happen when we not only dive into the unknown, but take the time to integrate our experiences and cyclically ask ourselves how many deeper layers of ourselves are inside, just waiting to be manifest into the physical world. For anyone looking to dive into Ankhara's world, participate in his breathwork sessions, purchase his art, and watch his psychedelic educational resources, make sure to check out the show notes, where I will be listing all of the best places to get in touch with him today. Ankhara, thank you so much for being a shining example of what can happen in our lives when we do the work and integrate like a pro, for taking the time to allow us to dive into your journey with psychedelics here on the show today, and for being a source of creative inspiration in my life. And until next time, my brother, may your journey be smooth and full of light. Aho.
Aho, Ashe, Amen.